Today, I am going to show you my method for doing SEO articles in 10 minutes using AI. This is a method that I literally see nobody else talking about, and it produces substantially better results than the majority of the tools out there that use AI for SEO. And for those of you who are fiction authors, as much of my audience is, this technique is something you want to pay attention to as well, because fiction authors need to use content marketing in some form in their business. And the example I'm going to be giving you in this video is a piece of content marketing that I will be using for one of my fiction books, although it can apply to nonfiction just as easily. So with that, let's get into the video. All right, everyone, this is the prompt that we are going to be using here. This is a super prompt that I developed, and it has been a very useful prompt for me so far. It has produced quality results in literally just one single prompt, and I'll show you exactly how I do that today. So the instructions, which are encased in these little tags here to help the AI process, it goes like this. I want you to write a 10,000 word informational article and then you enter your topic. Today we are going to be doing an article about Mina Harker, which is just an informational article about this character from the novel Dracula, who also happens to be a main character in the book that I just finished writing in all of my live streams using AI. So this will be an article about her that I will use as part of my content marketing strategy. And then we'll say from a first-person perspective. For this particular article, since it is about a character, I'm actually going to remove this little bit about the first-person perspective, because sometimes it starts talking as if she is the one actually doing the talking, which I don't want. But normally you want it to be in a first-person perspective so that it sounds like you're a real person talking, because you want to show in SEO that you have personal experience with the topic. Use I when describing your feelings about the subject. I'm going to remove that as well just for this particular article. So there is some tweaking that you'll want to do to this prompt. I've supplied you with some of the examples of other articles and video transcripts from various sources with some of the information you need. Use these examples to formulate an article that demonstrates firsthand experience. Use the keywords I've given you when it makes sense, and use them between 1 and 4 times each if possible. Follow the article outline exactly. And that's the end of the instructions. We have a pretty extensive style prompt here, which is also something to pay attention to. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but basically this is a style prompt I put together to prompt the AI to follow best practices with SEO. So making sure it's highly scannable, making sure that the paragraphs are short, that you use bulleted lists where necessary, maybe bolding or italicizing text, reducing fluff, a lot of different things that I've just developed over time to work with the AI. And then below here, we have a section for keywords. Now this is an important section, but where you get these keywords can vary depending on what software tools you have access to. Most of you watching this will not have access to an expensive tool. And so one of the ways you can get a list of keywords is to go to the top 5 to 10 ranking, create a huge document that includes all of those articles in it, plug that into a AI program with a lot of context window like Claude or ChatGPT Turbo, and using that, ask it for a list of you can ask it for a word cloud, essentially, giving you the top keywords that are found repetitively through those articles, and then you can paste those keywords in here. I happen to have access to a tool called Market Muse, and there's a lot of others. There's one called Surfer SEO that you can use that does this process as well. But you can see this gives me an analysis of the search term Mina Harker, which is the subject of this article. And you can see a list of all of the different keywords over here on the right. So if I take this, I can export the keywords as an Excel spreadsheet. And then from this Excel spreadsheet, I can just take the list of keywords here, copy, and then paste them into this section of my super prompt. Okay? So pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to scan through these to make sure there are any that we don't necessarily want Sexuality might be one to remove, given the things that Claude often doesn't want to talk about. And then we get to the article outline. In fact, I'll come back to this. Below the article outline, we have sections called examples. And this is where you want to put every article that you can find on the subject that is accurate, as well as you can put YouTube or podcast transcripts into these examples. This is to make sure it has all of the right background information, but we're doing it in a way so it's not plagiarizing these. We just want to make sure it gets its facts right. So what we will be doing is pasting a bunch of articles into these examples, but I'll show you that this doesn't plagiarize anything at all. Now, before I move any further, I want to talk to you a little bit about my process for writing an SEO article. The idea behind writing an SEO article is that you want it to be the best thing on the internet. And for starters, if you want it to be the best thing on the internet, you come to Google, you add your primary search term, which in this case is Mina Harker, and then you see what comes up. And you'll see, okay, we've got a Wikipedia article, so I'm just gonna open that one. We'll open this one from Fandom, this other one from Fandom, one from study.com. That's probably a good one from sparknotes.com. Some of these that have information from a random website like Weebly can actually be good and provide you. And then Schmoop, I know Schmoop is a good website. So basically you just kind of cherry pick some of the best websites here. And then from here, we can also go to YouTube and see, is there any good videos about Mina Harker? And there doesn't really seem to be. We've got clips from movies where Mina Harker has featured in the movie, but there doesn't really appear to be any good videos here on Mina Harker. So we're just going to forego the videos in this one, but you can put in video transcripts and things like that. So my process when creating an SEO article, whether I'm writing it with AI or not, is I start by looking at all of these articles that come up in the first 5 to 6 results, or at least 5 to 10 results. And I look at everything that we've got. And what I want to do is create an article that includes all of the same information from all of these different articles, but even better. I want to take everything from all of the articles and make sure I create basically a super article that includes all of the relevant information from each one. So I kind of start by looking at the one that I consider to be the best one, which in this case, I'd say it's, reasonable to assume that this Wikipedia article is going to be the most thorough, right? But then you can look through all of the others. This one actually looks like it's very similar to that article and might even be a copy. No, not quite a copy, so we'll leave it. This one doesn't have too much information. This one has, so for instance, we look at Mina Harker, the article for Wikipedia, and it gives us information about what she does in the novel, as well as in other media. And then we have lists of other media where she has appeared, which is primarily what this article is made up of. It's mostly other media that she's appeared in, which isn't really what I want my article to be about, or at least not the majority of it. And if we come over to this article, this one has a character analysis of Mina Harker, which could be very interesting. And it has relationship information of Mina and Jonathan, Mina and Dracula. And so that's all very valuable information you don't find in Wikipedia. So what we could do is take some of the information from the Wikipedia article, stitch it together with this character analysis, and we're essentially creating a long super article that works even better than either one of them alone. And this article doesn't have very much here. This one is kind of cool. It's got information about her intelligence, information about her as a Victorian woman, and Mina as a new woman. Having researched this character quite a bit, this is actually a very important topic. And we got more information here. So basically, if I were writing this for without AI, I would go through and I would stitch together an outline that includes elements from all of these. And then I would write it myself, kind of looking at what has already been written so that I can get a sense, but then I just put it into my own words. We are essentially going to do the exact same thing, but with AI. Now, some of you are probably thinking, okay, that sounds like cheating. And in a sense it is. I am certainly building my first draft off of the work that has already come before. And that's the way it's been in SEO for a long time. However, if you want to do it right, when you've done creating this super article, you want to add something of your own, some like just add a section or something that doesn't appear on any of the other articles out there. And then that will be the way that you make it better than all of the other articles. So we're creating the best thing on the internet by first of all making sure that our article has information on everything that all of the articles out there have, plus add a little bit of our own flavor. And by doing that, we are sort of standing on the shoulders of giants, but also taking the step just a little further. And that bit, the part about adding your own flair to it, is something that will come after and that you have to do yourself. The AI is not going to do that for you. But honestly, 95% of the time it takes to write an SEO article is by looking at everything that comes before and writing out that first draft, because you do need to have that information. If you don't have that information, your article will not be the best article on the internet. So you do have to include the same information that all of the other articles have. You just need to do it in a way where you bring it all together and also add your own extra flair to it. And so I'm going to be showing you how to get that first draft down, which will save you a ton of time so you can focus more on the unique bit that you are going to add yourself. So we got our keywords here, and we're going to be pasting some of these things here into the examples. But first, before we do that, I want to actually create our outline. I've already got it preloaded with the first thing. I labeled this H2 so that it knows that I want this to be an H2 header. Sometimes it gets it, sometimes it doesn't, with just introduction. And then I say in the first paragraph, mention exactly what the subject of the article is and what the reader will get out of this article. That's just generally what I want my introductions to do, although you can change that. I'm then going to add another H2 and say, who is Mina Harker? Because a lot of good articles usually start out with something like that. I like to sort of start with a baseline. So if I look at the Wikipedia article, I can see, okay, a good chunk of this is all about what happens to her in the novel. And so we want to include this information, but I want to break it down a little bit more. If I had more time and really wanted to think this through, I would go through and think, like, how would I divide this up? But instead, I think what I'm going to do is go to my Superprompt. We're going to create an H2 in the outline and say, Mina Harker in the events of Dracula. And then below that, I'm going to add a little note that says, add several H3 headlines with information about the sequential sequence in the book Dracula concerning Mina Harker. So I'm not going to put any H3s in there. And if you don't know, H2 and H3 refers to different levels of headings. So an H2 would look something like this, whereas an H3 might look something like this. I just label them, which one I want to be which, so it knows the order of the outline, and it seems to get that pretty well. Now, the next thing that we see in this article is this section on in other media, and then it's got books, film, television, animation, characters based on Mina, and on stage, and music and Japanese media. Like, we got a ton of stuff in here. And so I don't want my section to be quite as fleshed out as this, but what we will include at the end, so I'll just like create some space here because I know I'll be adding stuff in the middle. We'll say Mina Harker in popular culture, and then I'll add a H3 below that and say in other books, in film, and in other media. And I think that should account for most things. I'm going to add also a note for each of these to say include a list of 10 with a 1-sentence explanation. And then I'm just going to include that for each of these so it knows what to do with them. By the way, you should know that doing this outline part is, I would consider, the most important part. And it's the only part of this whole process that I do myself. The 10 minutes usually takes me about 10-15 minutes to put together this outline. And that's really where most of the time goes. So we've got everything that we really need out of this Wikipedia article. So we're going to look at the next wiki article here, which honestly looks very similar. It's got basically the exact same outline. So I don't see any like whole sections here that I would add. So I'm just going to skip that and move on to the next one. Same is true of this one. There isn't really anything new about this one that I would like. But if we look at this one, there's definitely some information here. Now, we've already got a Mina in Dracula section. And so I think we should add a character analysis section of Mina Harker here. So I'll create an H2, and you can call it the exact same thing. I would recommend changing it slightly. So, because we don't want to make it seem like we're copying the exact same thing. So I would say Mina Harker, a character analysis, something like that. And then I like how it's got like relationships here between different people. So we're going to add a section here. We're going to call it interactions with other characters. And then I'll put an H3 below that and say Mina and Jonathan. Another H3, Mina and Lucy. Another H3, let's see, what did this one have? Mina and Dracula and Mina and Van Helsing. Yeah, those all work. Mina and Dracula. Another H3, Mina and Van Helsing. All right. And this one does have a frequently asked questions thing at the very bottom. This can be really useful. So we can look at these and say, is there any information here that we should include? This one, what happened to Mina Murray at the end of the novel, might be a good one. What is the relationship between Dracula and Mina? We kind of got that in the relationship section. How is Mina described in Dracula? So we could put together a section. I would actually put this under who is Mina Harker. We'll put a H3 below that and say physical description of Mina Harker. Something like that I think would be really good. And then this one, what does Mina symbolize in Dracula? This might be a good one to include as well. I think this could be a good one to put underneath her interactions. So we'll put, what does Mina represent? And then we'll put an H3 below this because I know there was a section about Mina as a new woman and Mina as a Victorian woman. I think both of these would probably, sections on this would go well here under there. Mina as the ideal Victorian. And we'll do another one, Mina as a new woman. And all we're doing right now is just building out the outline and covering all of the topics that we want the AI to cover. The other thing that I would like to include here, we've got a section on Mina's intelligence here. And that I think would go well underneath the physical description of Mina Harker. So I will say intellect description of Mina Harker. I think that would be a good section there. And we've got Mina's mercy. Mina from other characters' point of views. We kind of got that. Mina's loyalty. Mina as a child. I think what we've got from this article is good for now. And then here in shmoop.com, we've got a section here on her being a new woman. So we've got a section on that. There isn't much more, like there's some good character analysis stuff in here, but nothing really like new. And so we pretty much got everything we need here for the outline. I think this is a nice, strong outline. And so we're going to go ahead and proceed with this. So the next step and the last step is to actually copy and paste the material from all of these example articles. So we're going to just do that really quick. And you just literally just click and drag, copy, paste into the example one. Then you can close out that one. We'll copy the next one. And it's okay if there's some, like if there's a lot of overlap, or even if you didn't use a lot of that particular article for your outline, it's okay to include it anyway, because really we're just providing background information for the AI to help it make sure it is accurate and not just making stuff up, which it will do anyway. But you want to, we're trying to make sure it is not too bad. All right, so this one into example 4. Close this one out. Example 5 is really short. This was a good one right here. Has a lot of quotes too, which will be useful from the AI's perspective. And so we can close this one. And then last but not least, we copy this one, put it under the example. And now we have a huge super prompt that we can now use. Now, I have found that the best way to use this so far is in Claude. You can use Claude 2.0, which is available in Poe. That's be the best way to access it. Or you can use Claude 2.1, which is newly released as I'm recording this video. There are some issues with Claude 2.1, but I've found so far it does take the super prompt for SEO articles pretty well. So if we take it and just paste the whole thing in there, we'll see what happens. And here you can see it has already started with the introduction. It says Mina Harker is one of the central characters in Bram Stoker's classic gothic horror novel Dracula. As the refined young school mistress who becomes engaged to Jonathan Harker, best friends with Lucy Westenra, and a victim of Dracula's vampirism, and so on and so forth. This paragraph's a little long. So one of the things you might discover you need to do is you might need to run this prompt a couple of times to get exactly what you want. Another thing I've noticed, it gave the H2 for who is Mina Harker, but then didn't put any information below it. Just moved straight onto the physical description of Mina Harker, which I can forgive it for doing. I could see why it would do that. We've moved on to Mina Harker in the events of Dracula, and it's doing a bulleted list here, which is fine, I think. I didn't give it too much guidance on what that should look like, but a bulleted list is better than the giant blocks of text that Wikipedia had. Then we're moving on to the Mina Harker character analysis here. And one of the things you will find as you go through this is you will find that the quality of the prose here is pretty good. There are services out there, particularly Surfer SEO has a service that will basically do this entire process for you. It does a very good job, but it's using a GPT model. And the GPT model does not do great prose. And so those things tend to come out really just... And what kind of sucks about that model is that they charge $30 for every article you create using this method. And you can do it much better with much better prose right here in Claude, which I think is a much better deal. It takes a little bit more work to gather all of the information and to make your outline and such, but it's actually really, really good. Now, I'm not loving some of the things about this particular draft. Like it's got some really big paragraphs here and some more right here. So I'm not really liking that. We could just go here and in the instructions, we could say use short paragraphs and other best practices for high quality web articles. Something like that. We do mention it in the style, but sometimes it's good to have it multiple times so it remembers. And then what you can do is you can start another one and just keep working on it until you've got something. This one isn't too much better so far, but you can keep working on it. If you want, you can try Claude 2.0. The best place I've found to use that right now is in Poe.com, because you can no longer access 2.0 in Anthropic's own chat. So if we were to paste this thing here in Poe, here's what that would look like using Claude 2.0 instead of 2.1. And as you can see, this one is going on and creating the article as well. So because of the nature of Claude, you may have to run it a couple of times, but I'll show you an example of what a finished article like this looks like. Here's an article I did on Helen of Troy for my MythBank website. And this is what it gave me, a pretty solid article. And this had very little revisions that were needed. I did go through and make sure to fact check everything. That is one of the things about using AI to write these things. you are prone to run into some hallucinations. That's why we include all of the example chapter or the example articles in the super prompt. But even then, sometimes you'll get some stuff. So you need to read it through, make sure it looks great. But you can get some really quality outputs with not a whole lot of time spent actually typing out the whole thing, which can take a long time. So I hope this video has been useful for you. If it is, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Now, if you want this prompt that I used, I've just started something new. If you go to my website, storyhacker.ai, and you sign up for the email list right here, I will give you a Google Doc that has all of my prompts on it, starting with this prompt. This is the first one that I've included on this Google Doc, and you can get it for free. Just sign up for the email list, and from then on, all of the prompts that I'm using in these videos will be added to that Google Doc so that you can see it and review it. So if you want this prompt to experiment and use for yourself, go ahead and sign up at storyhacker.ai just on the front page here, and you'll be able to get access to that with an email in your inbox. And thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video.